Yo, big up, Wagwan. Where I deal with Y Pre up top blessings. You don't know they're back again with another one. You guys see the title Manchester City versus Liverpool match preview. Absolutely massive, massive game. And can't break down a massive game like this by ourselves. We do have a guest here today, Liverpool 12th man. I'll bring him in shortly in a minute. But trust me, very, very big conversation to have. Debutant on the channel as well, so definitely do show him some love. Link is in the title, so just click that, take you straight over to his channel. Help run up his subs a bit. Leave him a comment on one of his videos. Tell him that Clinical sent you. Don't know how it go, but like I said, we'll get into the meat of the matter very, very soon. As it relates to the channel, algorithm has slowed down just a little bit, but doesn't stop, still working. um Love for all of the support I've been getting on previous videos. And subscriber wise, still want to hit that 165. It's coming along slowly but surely, but do continue to get my content out there. Leave your comments in the chat so YouTube know that you guys still like the content. Continue to like on the stream. I think this stream is up to 8 likes right now, so big up to the community for that before we even start. But yeah, do want to get into the conversation. 12 man is still just a bit busy, but let me just keep waffling on in the time being until he does return. But let me see what we have going on in the comments here. We have Jason H. Big up to you. I don't think I've seen your name here before, so if you're just tuning in as a first time viewer, do I am glad to have you here. Let me know what team you support. Let me know what team you support. If you're a Liverpool Red, if you're a Manchester City Blue, let me know in the comments. And as we do go along, feel free to give your thoughts as well, because I will be heading towards the comment section periodically to get your guys' thoughts. Wouldn't be a show without you guys, of course. But yeah, I cannot wait to get into this game.
Hello, hello.
The man of the minute, Liverpool 12th man. What are you saying to me, bro?
Oh man, sorry about that. Sorry about that. I had
All good?
the pool guys here, and like there's this stuff going on with my pool, so I had to make sure he knew what was going on. This um, I am well. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate the hospitality of bringing on a red into the blue into the sector of blue. So it's all good.
Hey, I'm just following from the footsteps of my club because tomorrow you guys do come to our home ground, and
Yes,
I'm
absolutely.
not sure how welcoming the fans will be of all the Liverpool Reds coming in. I'm sure the players will be up for this game as we usually are. For me, alongside the Manchester Derby, that's the first game I look for. But right after that, I'm looking at when are we playing Liverpool, especially when we're going to Anfield, because I'm still hoping to get that win over you guys in the near future. Hopefully, we can make that this season. But um, yeah, that's just pretty much how it is. Beta Games TV in the comments. Big up to my general. Check out his stream earlier. Guys coming back and does have the CIA show coming up on Sunday as well. Says large up the one named Clinical. Don't know. Big up to you, bro. But I'm sure you're very eager to get into the conversation as well. So the first thing I wanted to look at, I was doing a bit of research. I was looking at Pep's record versus Klopp, and I was actually surprised with what I saw. Like apparently after 28 games, Pep has won 11 of those games. Klopp has won 12 of those games, and in five occasions it ended in a draw. So from what I was thinking, I thought Pep was leading in terms of the head to head, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
No, it doesn't. And most and some of those matches are all those matches also is at him
Hmm.
at Bayern Munich
Yep,
and Dortmund.
Dortmund.
Okay,
Hmm.
I'd like to know. I'd like to. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but if you probably broke it down a little bit more on Premier League, then it might be a little bit. It's probably about the same. It's probably about like so evenly matched. This is simple. Like you guys win. You guys tend to win at the Etihad, and we tend to win at Anfield. We have. They're definitely fortresses for us both. I mean, Liverpool is had that long streak. I mean, we set one of the longest records actually for longest home home victories
Yeah,
or undefeated at home. So I mean, it's one of those things where like as in we have two teams and two coaches, two of the top coaches in the world, that have their teams dialed in, and when you get the support of the fans behind you, you tend to get results, and that's what normally happens.
100%. And for me, I look at Pep as he's a genius, he's a mastermind, but I do think that it's a general consensus that he tends to overthink sometimes and does show a lot of respect to his opponents. I think that's even
Mm-hmm.
more so true with Liverpool and Klopp because whenever he speaks about coming up against Jurgen Klopp, he does show a lot of respect in that regard. So I was actually watching his press conference earlier today, and he said it's the best rivalry he's been a part of, and
Yeah.
how much Jurgen Klopp has made him a better manager as well. So
Oh yes, this is Pep. I watched that interview too.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I look at it. I'm looking at that last game that we had played. We had played Chelsea. That was 4-4 spectacle, prime Barclays, if you ask me. But looking at that game, I thought that we went into that game with the intention of outscoring them, putting them to the sword, just like pressuring them into an overwhelming victory for us. I
Hmm.
don't think that Pep Guardiola approaches Liverpool coming to the Etihad in that way. And you could
Yeah.
argue we're more confident playing at home, but in this type of game, I do think that he's going to be a lot more pragmatic with his setup. It's going to be a lot more methodical, and it's going to be a chess game.
Yes, it always is. I mean, they're definitely two chess masters. I mean, let's be honest. Both of these managers both set very much the trends that you see in football today. And when it comes to, even sometimes mimicking themselves, as in, Pep and Jurgen have both said that you know, take they take inspiration from each other when it comes to a lot of their setups and the way that they go about trying to, tinker with and tweak the game, if you want to call it that. So it definitely is two chess masters sitting down, and it's one of those situations where we're gonna have to definitely see, um, you know, who's got that checkmate in their back pocket.
Fair enough, fair enough. And I keep thinking about Liverpool coming to the Etihad. I really don't know what to expect from either team in this game.
Yeah.
Normally, I think under other circumstances it may be a bit easier, but with all the injuries that we've had going into the international break, there's not really many updates coming out of it.
Mhm.
So I think it was Ederson with a knock had to withdraw from Brazil. Kovacic had a knock, had to withdraw from Croatia. Ake had a knock, didn't play for Netherlands. Stones is still out. KDB is still out. Nunez withdrew from Portugal. So we had tons of injuries, and I'm really not sure how many of those guys will be available for this game. Even Haaland, I think, had an injury issue. I do
Mhm.
think that he's going to play, though. I think Pep spoke on him a bit in his press conference. But
Mhm.
and from the Liverpool side, I know you guys have your injury issues as well, but even just from a selection standpoint, like there are tons of positions I'm looking at, and I'm like, well, who's Klopp gonna play? I'm
All right.
looking at the left back, I'm looking at the striker, winger. Like I don't know.
I
Even
think
even at centre back.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I said even at centre back. I was looking at that too.
Yeah, I can understand. Some of the, you know, question marks, I guess you could say, when it comes to the lineups or who's going to actually just be available. Period. I just think though with City again, you spoke about chess master or or just like master of the craft. I think it's just being honest. Like Pep is being definitely. Pep is utilizing his wordplay very well because we all know
Mm,
that Holland's going to play. Okay, so it's not like I think a lot of these players. I mean, the only players I know that I had targeted or at least or I'd seen as being out for you guys was Nunez, as you said, Kovacic, Stones, and obviously KDB with the long term injury. So I mean, like other than those four, and I wasn't expecting anything different. It's the same for our team. For Liverpool, it's more so Thiago, Robertson, Those are two, and Bichetic, those are two long-term injuries that they're dealing with, and they're trying to rehab with Thiago and Bichetic, and with Robbo, it's just he just had surgery. Obviously, it's gonna be a little bit of a process to get that shoulder properly rehabbed. But Joe Gomez is the only other name that I've seen on the list being out so far. And
Oh,
normally when you do look at the list, you tend to look at least I do. I tend to look at the betting houses, like the betting lists and stuff,
mm,
because not so much that I'm a big gambler,
yeah,
but more so they tend to have the more accurate and up to date information, simply because money is riding on it. So normally they will provide you with the most like accurate information. So
that's
yeah,
fair.
those are the names that I'm looking at. But I mean, like Gravenberch is going to be available. McAllister is going to be available. So those names are going to be making it. It's just a matter of will they have the fitness in them from being out on international break. That's a big question, of course, but because there's a lot of travel involved and everything else. But I mean, realistically, I think that we're going to see pretty much the teams at, I'd say, what, 95, 90%, all healthy, pretty much.
All right, and there's a comment here from Jason H again. Says we have to be a bit more controlled than what we did against Chelsea. We can't play Liverpool's game being at home. In terms of setup, which we will speak about that more later on. I do have a bit more stats to talk about, but I do think that the fast transition back and forth play suits both teams. I do
Mhm.
think a bit more so Liverpool might prefer that because we do know deep down Pep likes to do the methodical thing, even though he can do the Chelsea thing in one off situations. But in terms of playing that style consistently, it does suit Liverpool more. So I'd prefer if we not, but at the same time, if we were to, there is quality in our team to take advantage of that type of game. But to look into those stats I was talking about, um, just to quickly recap on our previous games that we had played, we did have that 4-1 victory over you guys in the last fixture,
Yeah.
which was a big game for me because Haaland was in fact injured at that point in time. And you touched on how Pep and I think Klopp does this a bit too. They like to keep their cards a bit close to their chest. Like they're
Yes.
not gonna give the
Yes.
whole information. Like, oh yeah, he's definitely fit. He's definitely out.
Exactly.
Like they're
Exactly.
gonna leave you with as many questions as possible because if it's Haaland playing, you'll set up differently versus if it's Alvarez starting up top,
Right.
which I'm sure you expected Haaland to play last season when it actually was Alvarez who came in, and he was a very very key part in us having that such a big victory over you guys.
Hmm.
Um, we do know Mo Salah always gets his customary goal against us, and we do have to talk about him a bit later as well, but. It was overall a comfortable victory, if I do say so myself.
Yeah. I like how you bringing up some
Hey, I
harsh
only brought it up.
memories.
I only brought it up because it is the most recent reverse of this fixture because it was still at the Etihad. It's the last time we both played each other at the Etihad in the Premier League. So that's why I brought it up. To be fair, but
Okay. Okay. So you're right. That is certainly the case. It was 4-1. That was also during a period, though. This team is definitely different than that team that you
mm,
faced in
yeah,
that 4-1 victory, and or 4-1 defeat for us. But I mean, this team is definitely different. I mean, this team, uh, most notably, your team is different too, though. And I mean, like,
mm,
there's a lot of these players that both of our teams have allowed to depart that were very important, if not very key members of our teams, as in the heart and soul of the clubs. And replacing those people isn't exactly the easiest measure to make. But I know that obviously Pep and also Klopp are very very astute at doing so. So when it comes to remembering that game, yeah, in April, right? It was I think
yeah,
it was like more like for I think it was April 1st, so it was April
yeah.
Fool's Day for us. So I mean, for me, is that's normally like I just look at it as the April Fool's matchup and don't try to forget about it. But but yeah, it was certainly a situation where I was hoping not to go into that match and get like I wasn't expecting many things from that match. I was looking at if we got any type of result, and then the result being a draw, that we would have been fortunate. So at that moment, I was very much just like let's not go into this match with a team that is like performing on all cylinders at home. Let's not go into this match and get absolutely embarrassed. And yeah, we came out and we at least scored. So that much I can
Yeah.
say about that.
And you guys scored first. I think that's very important to mention. I think if we let that happen again tomorrow, it's going to be a completely different matchup than it would have been last season. And looking at the game before that, I think it was a Carabao Cup fixture just off the back of another international break, I believe.
Yeah,
And that one ended 3-2. We also played at the Etihad. I think
yeah,
this game is a lot more it's a lot more likely to be like that one versus the one that we played the last time around.
and
And
yeah, okay.
like you mentioned, last season there was tons of issues going on at Liverpool from a
Hmm.
form standpoint, and that did fix up towards the end of the season. But in terms of this season, I thought you guys have started exceptionally well. I had always had you guys up there in terms of our closest challengers. My prediction was City, Liverpool, Arsenal, simply
Hmm.
because I know our last season was a one-off, and
Hmm.
that might be the case for Arsenal as well. Like looking at it objectively, not
Hmm.
because they played at that level means that automatically they're gonna come in and be exactly as good as they were last season. I look at this is a bit of a tangent, but I'm looking at Rashford. People are telling me he's coming in this season to do 20 goals again. I'm like, not because he did it last season means that this is his level now. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
like you do have to give them like take a step back and look at what they're coming towards us with this season. I think it's way more likely to believe that Liverpool go back to how they were the season before last versus continuing from they were last season. So I think this game has the potential to be the best game of the season so far, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think that this is. Look, I think the only thing that's negative about this game upcoming is the fact of I don't know what time do you have to wake up for this game? What time is
So for me, the game starts at 7:30. I
okay?
like to wake up an hour before games,
Right.
usually, so that I can properly prepare. I'm a big tea guy, so I need my cup of tea. I need to
Okay.
sort out what jersey I'm wearing and all
Right.
that good luck charms I have going on. But yeah, I'm gonna be up 6:30 a.m. to catch a 7:30 game. How about you?
So for me, normally it's at this game. This game is going to be at 5:30, but normally it's
Mm.
at four. It would be at 4:30 a.m. Okay, so I do say this with the game being so global. There's no there's no shame in the game when it comes to the international representation that these clubs get, because I mean for the devotion and for the amount of preparation that you have to do to be able to be a part of the live match, it takes a lot of dedication, and that is something that I don't care what any fan in England or fan in the actual city of the teams that we support, they should all be cognitive of that
Yeah,
fact of like, if you had to wake up at, like you said, you're waking up an hour early, so that means 6:30 in the morning. Here, I'm not even going to bed. Actually, most likely, I'll probably stay up from the night before. I have a night gig anyway, so if it was something like on those lines of me having to wake up at like 3:30, 4:30 in the morning just to see a
yeah,
match, it does take a lot, to do so. So so yeah, it's going to be a fun little matchup to say the least. I know that the 12:30 kickoff is I know people get rattled and everything else, but I did hear both coaches mention something about the 12:30 kickoff, and it's something where it is a concern to me as to how many times we have been chosen to be the 12:30 kickoff, especially coming off of this international break, all these different little things. It truncates the time that you have to prepare for it. And people say, "Oh, well, just get over it, just get over it." Well, if you were the person that was getting picked to do something more so than others, and I mean like twice as many times as the closest person, you would start to mention something about it eventually. But I think of it as like, you know what, I'm looking at it from Jurgen's perspective, the way he said it, and hey, I love 12:30 kickoffs. How about that? So let's have another one and let's just see what happens.
No, fair enough, and I have to agree. If it was City in that situation, I would be starting to get annoyed too. I can't lie.
Right.
And in this particular situation, this game was scheduled for I think
5:30.
3 p.m. 5:30, yeah, 5:30
5:30.
kickoff, and they
Yeah.
moved it up. I'm led to believe that the reason for that is because of policing issues. They knew that this game
Mhm.
might become a very cagey one from a fan perspective, so
Yeah.
they wanted to bring it up to the first game of the day to where they could have more active policing in charge of that game, then
Mhm.
going into the other games of the weekend. But if you do look at it from that perspective, I'm not sure how many games for you guys get like that, but against City for sure, against United is a good
Mhm.
possibility, and then you guys have Everton as well in that mix.
Right.
So I don't know, man, but so I don't rate how they do the scheduling for Premier League games. Anyway, if I'm being honest with you, like
Yeah.
I get that issue, but they could have moved it to the 3 p.m. kickoff instead of 5:30. You move it up a bit earlier, so it's not the latest game of the day, but it's
Yeah.
still not. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I totally
Um,
get what you're saying. But there's also, and I'm not going to allow for the television stations to get off scot free because
yeah,
they have a say in it too. And what it came down to is yes, the police definitely put in that suggestion and made that assertion that it would be easier to police and everything else and yada yada, and it's less time for people to like, you know, get up and get drunk and do
yeah,
things like such. It's really crappy though to know that a few bad apples can spoil the bunch. I guess you say that saying,
yeah,
and I also say though that when it comes to this game, the television stations had a choice and they decided, yes, let's isolate this game and make this the 12:30 game, because albeit you don't there no one's done this, whoever the options or candidates of the day could have been, you know they're just not looking at that being a money drawer for these stations. So they often decide on who's going to have people tune in at this hour, you know, and it often is your bigger clubs, your bigger name or your bigger
yeah,
name clubs. So I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's. I think that there should be a cap or some type of like, you know, just a fair and balanced approach towards the game. If we start twisting and turning, trying to make it appeasable for record, or excuse me, for stations to actually increase their bottom line, then it takes away from the actual product. It takes
yeah,
away from the game. And ultimately, it's great that you got your game, but now do you want a game that's going to keep people being like, oh, I want to tune in to see this amazing competition, or do I want to just say, oh well, yeah, maybe because of this time, or maybe because that was forced into this time slot, I didn't get what I really should have gotten, which was a well
yeah.
competitive matchup. So
And
it is what
you're
it is.
you're you're absolutely right, because if this was Burnley versus Nottingham Forest, no one would be really tuning in to catch that game. So that is
Absolutely.
definitely an aspect to it as well. They know that regardless of what time they put a game like this, people are going to watch it
Right.
nonetheless. And I do know the other factors go into it, like European competitions, and when their next game
Sure.
might be scheduling wise, so they don't want to push it back too late. They'd rather have it early, have more rest time or whatever. There's a ton that goes into it, but ultimately, I do agree that there can be more work put into it scheduling wise to make it a
Yeah.
bit fair for everyone.
Yeah.
We do have my general
Hmm.
United Spurs of America, Jacob in the building. Big up to you.
Big up,
Thanks for
Jacob.
being here as usual, my guy. And we do have Jordan with
Big
his
up to Jordy
regular
too.
regular message tuning in. Oh, the lads. And it also says, coming soon, bro. No worries. I hope you're here when that time comes around. But
That's funny. That's funny. That's not the first time I've heard that saying. That's funny. The Oil
Oil
Classico.
Classic.
Huh?
Oh yeah, I can't lie. I can't take the credit for it. I saw it on Instagram, I think, and I'm like, you know what? I like that.
I
Oil
like that.
Classic.
That's funny.
We'll go with that. But recent form of both teams. Currently we're on the back of 3 wins, 1 draw, and a loss. And Liverpool coming in with slightly better form, 3 wins and oh, so I thought that was 3 wins and 2 draws. 3 wins and 2 losses, no draws in the past 5 games.
That's
And
including our because we lost against Toulouse.
no, I think that's just
Uh,
Premier League. I was looking at the Premier League table when I got that.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I can take a quick look at what games that span, but in terms of the most recent games, which I did want to go into next, we do have City versus Chelsea, which we did speak of a bit before. Do you think that game can influence how tomorrow's game might come in terms of
Say
how
say
we might set up or how you guys might come at us?
say one more time now.
So our last game against Chelsea, the 4-4
Oh,
at Stamford Bridge,
right.
do you think that game influences or changes how we might set up at home with you guys coming to town, or change how Klopp might approach the game coming towards us?
No, I don't at all. One thing is this. Um, I believe that the 5 game stat you just said was including
Yeah, yeah.
our Europa matchup
It seems so. Yeah,
because we are in Premier League. We have we're 3-0-2, or however you want to put it. I don't know if you put draws last or not, but like um, but we have 3 wins and we have 2 draws in the Premier League.
that's
And
it.
I know you guys have 3 wins, 1 draw, and
I
a
one loss.
loss. But the
So
loss was like 5 games ago.
do you remember when I said, um, I think at first I said I thought there was a draw in there. That's actually what happened. It was 3 wins and 2 draws, but I wrote down loss by mistake.
Oh, okay.
So you actually have a draw against Luton and then
Right,
a draw against Brighton, which was the fifth game. So
right,
that's where that was coming from. So
right.
3 wins and 2 draws for Liverpool. That's definitely better form for you guys coming into this game.
I mean, like, it's very interesting. I mean, like, you can look at those things. I can understand. I'm a big stat guy. I get often called out for my statistics. And then, especially when you go against people that are more eye test merchants,
Yeah,
they tend to not
acknowledge, respect,
yeah,
stats.
acknowledge or glamorize statistics at all. I'm like, hey, that's just sometimes I like to say that's just a reflection of your love of math. But I mean, it's all good. But and when it comes to numbers and seeing those statistics, look, um, Manchester City are definitely more informed than their record is showing. I would say. Um, I don't think that the next matchup against City is going to be any bit determinant on the Chelsea matchup, because that Chelsea matchup was one of those things where maybe, just maybe, I'm not saying it's a definite. Obviously, it's just me making a perspective. It, maybe it's just a situation where they were already looking at the international break. They were already looking at what that matchup was going to be after the international break. Sometimes you overlook games, and especially when it comes to teams like a Chelsea who have incredible firepower on their team. You might come across a situation where you're not necessarily putting in your best. You're playing to your competition, let's just say it that,
Yeah,
rather than playing to your own level. And that's certainly the case when it came for us, for instance, when it came against Luton Town. We were playing against a low block team, a team that we should have absolutely just ran through, pause, and like we just absolutely could not figure out how to really properly break down the low block of Luton until they got their opportunity. And then we had to have our savior Lucho come in and give us our opportunity. But I think that this game's going to be a difference. The same way for your matchup, a lot of goals, obviously. I mean, 8 goals
yeah.
scored. It was 4-4 was the score, right? a lot of goals scored. I mean, it showed a lot of resilience though by your team to battle and continue to hold form despite the fact of going down early in that
Mhm.
matchup too. So
Well, what I will say is we'll definitely speak on Liverpool versus Brentford 3-0 victory for you guys. I didn't get
mhm,
to see that game, but I definitely love to get your thoughts on how your last Premier League game was what was coming off. But for the why I asked that question in regards to how that Chelsea game might affect stuff,
right.
I didn't expect us to go toe to toe, full blown, straight up the field, commit the numbers, aggressive chance creation against Chelsea away at Stamford Bridge. Now I
Hmm.
know that they haven't been in the best form in the past couple of seasons and this season as well, but I do think that the results for them are just a bit worse than what their performances are.
Hmm.
I do think that they create a decent amount of chances when they do play. It's just sheer lack of clinical goal scorers or clinical forwards in their team to actually capitalize on those opportunities and push them on to get good results.
Hmm.
But I think Pep went into that game and thought because of that and because of how good our defense was playing, because if you take those four goals out, I think we would still be in single digits for goals conceded this season, if I'm not mistaken. So I think Pep was really backing our defense up against a team that he was looking at as not very clinical
Hmm.
and ironic because that's my name. I think he was looking at that and saying, you know what? Go for it. Go out there, outscore them. It could be like a 4-2 game, 4-1 game. It could be a case where we score first and then they just hide in their shell and it's just us pressuring them and until the end of the game. So looking at that and seeing how it turned out, it didn't really go as well for us. We had the lead on three occasions and then still end up drawing the game. Especially that last one, I did think that 4-3 was gonna be the final result, but we did give away that penalty, which was a pen, and they capitalized on it. Cole Palmer coming back to haunt us, but I don't. Based on that, I don't know if Pep approaches the Liverpool game in the same way. You know, I might say he won't because of that, and but that's just my opinion. I really don't know what this guy's gonna do. I didn't expect him to go up against Chelsea like that in the first place, so why wouldn't he do the same thing against Liverpool?
Hmm.
Maybe he was looking at this Liverpool game at home and saying, you know what? Let's see what we do against Chelsea in preparation for doing the same thing against Liverpool. I don't know. So it's a very tricky one, and at the same time, he could do the 180 and say, you know what, that is not happening again. We need to be a lot more constructed, compact, and know that if they try to break us down, we're there and we're ready, and then we'll take our time going forward and know and back ourselves that we'll create one or two goal scoring opportunities. It might be a low scoring win, but it's more efficient than if we were to go full on aggressive and go toe to toe with Liverpool.
It could be. I mean, that's I just think that like the major difference, and I mean it also it was raining that game, wasn't it? It was like pretty poor conditions, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Wasn't it?
yeah, yeah,
So I mean, you know, I can understand how there might be some looking back at that game, but then again, that game was almost what 2 weeks ago.
mm,
Like there's so much has happened since that game, and also not only so much has happened, but it's so much that again I don't think that is Chelsea is someone that you have to prepare against. I'm not going to say that their current position and rank and is not exactly shouldn't be reminiscent of what their actual team should be doing. You know,
yeah,
but I can say though that when it comes to this matchup, there's certain matchups like Manchester City, for at least for Liverpool, for Manchester City when we do face Chelsea, but more when we have these normal rivalry style matchups. Okay, you tend to kind of like throw away whatever form or whatever is going
yeah,
on and just understand that this matchup is going to be really focused and targeted on that bulletin board in the locker room for these coaches when it comes to how they're going to prepare, what they're going to be looking for, how well they've scouted and understood and understand what they're going to bring out and what they're going to try to bring out into the field or onto the pitch. And yeah, I'm looking for a really fun game. I'm looking at it more like I'm looking at it more like our FA Cup game that we had against you in April of
Uh,
2022.
See, you're
Um,
bringing up bad memories now.
there
Like,
you go. I had to bring up one.
yeah, that's fair. That's
I
fair.
mean, you
That's
want to
fair.
talk about our 4-1. You want to talk about our 4-1.
That's fair.
So, but the one unique thing about it, I can say too, is that um, your the two matchups that we talked about, whether it was you talked about the League Cup matchup that we had,
Yeah.
where you won 3-2, okay, and I'm talking about the FA Cup one where we won 3-2. I'm looking at a game more like that game to
Yeah.
come tomorrow for sure.
Boy, I don't want to talk too much on that FA Cup game, but from what I remember, it was a very, very tough time injury wise and
Right.
the schedule as well. I think we had Madrid tied around those two Liverpool games. I think we played you at the Etihad, which
Mhm.
was the 2-2 game, and then we had Real Madrid. Then we had that FA Cup game, and then we had Real Madrid again right
Yeah,
after that. And it was just a terrible run with
yeah.
players being missing at the same time. But um yeah, so that was my thoughts in regards to what that and you mentioned that rival nature of a big six game. That's
Mhm.
part of the reason or majority of the reason why I didn't expect Pep to set up in that way against them. I thought he would show them a lot more respect. But in regards to Liverpool's game against Brentford, 3-0 win, I'm sure that I like
Okay.
to think that
Mhm.
previous wins coming into a big game or even just coming into a game off the back of a win
Mhm.
boosts morale going into that game. So, what do you think that 3-0 win is going to do for you guys coming to the Etihad?
I'm gonna do my best captain talk, and that is, we just focus on the next game ahead of us. We don't necessarily dwell too much in the past, nor do we look too far into the future. It's always about what is in front of us and what is the immediate concern. And the immediate concern is City. Okay, so enough of the scripted talk. The scripted captain talk. Yeah, I the Brentford match. I mean, again, it was something that you know a game we had at home, a game that Brentford is a talented team. Um, but I think that like the same out of that game, I think there's a lot of positives that we could have seen actually happen in the sense of um, we got a decent showing out of Simicast. We have obviously I think we have who I consider the best defensive player in the world in Virgil van Dijk. And to have another masterclass when it came to his performance on the pitch. There's a lot of different characters and players on this team that just continue to impress, continue to show their true character and class. And when it comes to playing at Anfield, it's just a different animal in itself. So sometimes when people are like, "Oh, well, how do you like your form or whatever the case might be?" It's more so I'm looking at how we're going to perform on the road because on the road it's a different story than when you're at home, and how you actually perform at home is all well and good. But again, you always have it's like you know it's like if you go home to your parents' house, you know you're going to get that home cooking. So you're all excited, you're in a different mindset, you're in a different mode and everything else. But if you might go to someone else's home and it might be them they might be actually a good chef on their own, but it doesn't
Mm,
necessarily mean that you're going to get that sample that makes you feel at home.
at home, yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
so I'm looking at it as like how do we take this game going into some confines that are going to be very very stacked against us with the crowd and everything else. How do we go into this matchup and push away that whole 12:30 stuff, the
Mm,
midday kick or noonday kickoffs, get that out of our mind, get focused on this matchup and actually perform. And I don't even know if I don't think that we take games that we had in the past as being like oh well, we're going to focus in on this or focus in on that because we had a good game against Brentford. Brentford's a completely different team. It's and again it's at home confines. We're going to your house against a top tier, one of the best teams in the world. So when it comes to that, I'm looking at it as how do we focus and how do we prepare ourselves to take on that task or that challenge, and that's the biggest concern is the what we do in training to prepare for that matchup. I think we'll be ready.
No, that's a fair assessment. That's definitely fair. And I do think that still, in addition to all of that, coming especially off the back of a clean sheet as well, I do think
Yeah,
that some of your players will be backing themselves physically coming into this game, thinking, you know
yeah,
what? We're gonna be up for it. The away fans coming with us are gonna be up for it. The manager is not gonna want to throw this game. He's gonna want to make a statement with the performance here. So I'm in a good place to go out there and really give City some problems.
yeah,
Um, Right now, we got for everyone watching right now live. We do appreciate you being here. Thank you for
definitely.
joining in. Do continue to hit that like button. It's been going good so far. Continue to run it up. We're not at 15 yet. That's the goal I always aim for every stream. And still three away from 165. Help me to get there. Little by little, slowly but surely, we'll get there. But we're trying to get some growth in here. Obviously, send some love to towards Liverpool 12th man as well. His link to his channel is in the title, so just pull that up, click it. It won't take you off the video. Go drop him a sub. Come right back here. We can continue the chat. We're going to the key matchups next that I do want to look at because I do
Hmm.
think there are tons of key matchups on the pitch. But before we do that, I do want to get into the comments and then introduce my guy, True City fan, that's just tuned in. Veta Games says this game will be tactical and entertaining. Honestly, it always is. Need this win at home because away at Anfield will be tough. And what I've realized, not just with Liverpool, but in all the title races we've been in since the takeover, whenever we come up against the team that is our closest rival for the title, we never have two poor results against them in the league. So say we play at Anfield first and we lose, I know we are winning at the Etihad when we face you again. Conversely, if it's a draw in the first game, I don't think we lose the next game and then on head to head you guys have the better result. I actually went through all the seasons and checked it and it's actually never measured up like that. So I
Hmm.
take it that in this game, if we start off with a win, that will give us a bit more comfort going into Anfield the next time around. But if we do somehow lose this game, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the team to get a win at Anfield, which we haven't managed to do in a very long time. So,
Very true.
very, very interesting comment there
Very-
from Beta
yeah.
Games. MCFR TV, big up to you. Thanks for being here. Says he's in a Christmas shop. One of the moderators of the channel, big up to you all the time. And it also says, hoping for a great game. Me and you both, brother. At least we can all agree that this is going to be a very exciting game, at least for the neutral and more than likely for both teams. And DZ-ish tuning in says, I'm convinced that the players are not as concerned about the early kickoff as the managers are. That may very likely be the case, but I don't know, man. I feel like there's a notable difference in the energy of the teams, and it's not just Liverpool. I think from City too. Like I don't think the players particularly like the early kickoff either, but I think it's gonna be a fair game anyways. I don't think that's gonna affect the outcome of the game too much. But yeah, let me bring in true City fan into the building. Big up to you, Patrick, for being here. What are you saying to me, bro?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Hey, good. I had to get the guy on Liverpool 12th man to give us the DL on his team. But yeah, it's been a good chat so far. How are you feeling ahead of the game?
Who has that background noise? I think there's a Hoover. um, there's a sound like a computer sound or Hoover
I'm
in the
not sure
background.
if I'm not sure. Oh, sorry about that, Patrick. I was trying to get the comment off the screen. I'm not sure if it's me, but I'll go ahead and on mute
I'll
just in
double check.
case.
I don't think it's me.
Yeah, and then there's some music playing in the background. Look at this, guys. Okay, cool.
Oh,
So
that's
look,
not. There's no music. There's no music here.
Is it only me you can hear music?
I don't hear any music either. I don't know.
No, I don't have
Okay.
any. There's nothing playing. Nothing playing at all.
Okay, that's gone now. Okay, so look for this game, all I wanted to say is I think to be honest, this is one of the biggest games right now, and somebody even said it that more people are watching this game than the El Clasico, and it's true. People wanted meat. People who are salty obviously wanted meat at all. The Barcelona Madrid thing, there's no excitement anymore. We can be honest with that. I think it's no longer something that's fascinating. But at this point in time, looking at the 12 p.m. kickoff, obviously, I was watching Klopp and Pep. They all seem not to be happy with it. I just hope that the players that had knocks from City are fit because
Yeah.
as much as Liverpool is not playing without a DM right now, they're playing with a box-to-box midfielder and they're playing McAllister as the number six. What these two have brought into that midfield is energy. That's what they were missing before. So you saw the energy when we played energy and strong midfielders against with Chelsea. Obviously, Chelsea. I warned people. I told people that Chelsea actually have good midfielders. If they just put them together, they would actually win the midfield battle and isolate Rodri, which happened to us. Unfortunately, now we use Alvarez as the number 10. I still feel Nunes or Kovacic must come into that midfield when De Bruyne is still not fit. I love Alvarez, but I think he's not a midfielder. He will obviously move around a lot, and he's got trends as a striker. But I'm looking forward to this. And Liverpool 12 man, I'm pretty sure this is the game that makes you nervous because this is the game that when I'm watching, I'm shaking. I'm like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? Because you're scared that is it going to be us who are gonna bleed first, or it's gonna be them. And every time when the other team scores, you always have this hope that City will come back or Liverpool will come back, and it does happen. My feeling for this game, I think it's going to be a basketball game. I think people are saying it's going to be quiet. I don't think it's going to be quiet. Both Liverpool and City this season, they're not as solid defensively. I know Liverpool have got a good defensive record in the league, but if you look at it proper, these are not the same sides that used to cancel each other off, possession football, go toe to toe in a certain way. I think these guys are just gonna go like a basketball game, and at the end of the day, we'll just see you score, I score, you score. And as I told you, Clinical on the other channel, I'm scared of Darwin Nunes, not because Darwin Nunes can finish his dinner, but the fact that Darwin Nunes has good movement and Darwin Nunes is very dangerous. Trust
He's a
me.
good player.
Defenders, yeah.
He's a good player. Yeah. I do hear all of that.
I'm only laughing because the whole Darwin Nunez can't finish his dinner is just funny. You realize that Darwin Nunez has actually, I believe he has a better goal completion rate than your boy Holland this year, currently. Oh, but we don't want to talk about that. Now, Holland's definitely a great scorer, and he has ability, obviously, and he's one of the best, if not the best, like striker in the world. Not disputing that, but hey,
So
sometimes statistics can be a mofo.
before we go into the whole like Nunes debate properly, right?
No, and I don't want to
No, no,
make it
no,
Nunez versus
no, no, no,
Holland. I
no.
don't
Hold on,
want
no,
to
no,
make
no,
it
no. Hold
Nunez
on, hold
versus
on, hold
Holland.
on. You don't know where I'm going with this. What I
Let me
was
hear
gonna
it. Let me hear
say
it. Let me hear it.
is one of the matchups I have looking at is the striker versus Ruben Diaz. So I'm not sure if that's gonna be Nunes starting or Jota. I think from what I've seen this season, it's been Jota starting with Nunes coming in as that impact player to kind of shake the dice. But how do you think Liverpool is gonna set up top? Like, do you think it's gonna be Nunes starting, or do you
Yeah,
think we should be more worried for Jota being that first player out?
I think that the one. So you asked about how other match or other games have kind of unfolded and how they've kind of shaped our team. Um, I believe that Nunez is our first choice. He has placed himself as being our first choice as our number nine. There is more than a reason why he wears the number nine on the back of his kit, but I'm one of the big Nunez supporters. I've been since he's joined the team. I've actually, even when there was like rumors about like him possibly going, either coming to our team or coming to another team in the Prem, I still like started doing my own individual scouting. And when he did eventually come to our club, I was definitely very very happy to see him, join our ranks. But when it comes to Nunez, Nunez is our nine, and love him or hate him, I think that Nunez brings what I love to see to this club, which is excitement, brings energy, brings commitment. He's got that. To me, he's got that Dwayne Wade style concept of like fall down 7 times, get up 8. Like it does not matter how many times you. The best thing that you want to see out of a striker is someone that can, brush off, the miss and think he's going to score the next thing. That Mamba mentality that you see from like a Kobe Bryant, or something along those lines, is which is like you just keep shooting. You think even though you missed whatever amount of shot you missed, you're going to make the next one. That's the concept that you have, and that's the kind of mentality and energy and everything that Nunez brings, and that's something that I'm very very optimistic that he'll be able to show this weekend.
No, that's fair. And Patrick, before I bring you in to get your thoughts in on that topic again, that's why I had to say he's a good player because what I've noticed from him, I've seen him miss tons of chances before, and he's still getting himself into those good positions to then, last season miss another one. But particularly this season, even for Uruguay, I think he's been pretty good. I think he's been going under the radar how good he is in terms of how much props he's getting for his performances. Is it at a level where I'm terrified of him coming in? I'm not sure. Like I still haven't seen him come up with a massive performance against us as yet. I think he got an assist in the game in that Carabao Cup last season, the 3-2 win at the Etihad. I think he had maybe one or two assists in that game. I don't quite remember, but I don't remember him coming in with any performances pulling up trees. Jota on the other hand,
You're
Jota,
talking about
I'm,
you're
I'm a
talking
bit.
about Nunez. You're talking
Yeah.
about Nunez.
Can can you can you remind me? Can you remind me of a game
Darwin
where,
the
where he was pulling
Ambassador.
up trees against us?
I call him Darwin the Invasor because Invasor is Klopp referred to him as a thoroughbred, as a racehorse, and in Uruguay, his native country, the greatest racehorse of all time. His name is Invasor. Invasor means raider or invader. And so I believe that Darwin is an invader of the back lines of our competition, and he does it very well. I just find it interesting that you said that, considering that his debut in the league or debut with Liverpool was scoring the winner against you guys in the Community Cup. So it's very Community
Oh
Shield.
yeah,
So I mean, like,
the
I
English
mean,
Super Cup. Yeah,
yeah,
massive game.
yeah, yeah. I think it's a pretty massive. It might not be exactly. I mean, there's people that take or either love or hate Community Shield or don't rate it or say whatever it is, say it's exhibition match or whatever, yada yada. But still, it's a trophy and it's something. We don't have a Super Cup in the English Premier League, so it's the closest thing to a Super Cup, and it's something. I'm not trying to just rate everything on the Community Shield, but it's just funny. That's all.
Yeah, no, I mean I get that, and I'm not trying to shit on the Community Shield either. I think personally, I think I give it a bit more respect than most people do because, like
Right.
you said, it is another trophy, and
It
as
is a
a City
trophy.
fan,
Yeah.
I'm a bit slightly entitled in that way where I want to win every single trophy available. The Community
Exactly.
Shield, Carabao Cup, FA Cup are all included in that list. I want all of
Wait,
them. I
Exactly.
want a
wait, wait,
clean
wait, wait,
sweep.
wait.
Isn't me?
Hold up. Let's not gas up the Community Shield
No, no, no,
guy.
no, no. No. What I want to say before you jump in, Patrick, what I do
Uh,
want to say is even with all that considered, it's the last thing on the list. So
Yeah.
if you're gonna yes, it was a good goal he scored at the end of the
You
game,
have
but I'm
to.
I'm still not gonna use that to say he's a player that we should be afraid of
oh no no
because
no.
in the bigger games in the Premier League games that he has played against us, which I don't think it's been a few of them. I think he's played in near all of them, if not all of them. He hasn't really shown me any performances that say, you know what, he's gonna come in on absolute smoke like a Mo Salah would in this particular game. That's the point I was trying to make. But Patrick, in terms of Nunes, let me know why you're so scared of him tomorrow.
Look. Nunes. I watched him when he was in Portugal, and the movement he had and how he was dangerous in the Champions League. And believe it or not, I rate him. It's just there is players like Nunes, right? And I hope Nunes doesn't end up that way because we're talking about Gabriel Jesus, Nunes. So far, I put Nunes and Gabriel Jesus in the same bracket. Players that you're like, if only you were consistent, you would be dangerous. Because if you look at Jesus, right? Jesus would go in a period, remember, rescue us in the Champions League,
Yeah.
score amazing goals. You're like, is this the same Jesus? And then he goes quiet. I think if this season, and I'm praying, and like I don't hate Nunes at all. I want more strikers in the Prem, especially Nunes. I want him to succeed because it's more competition for strikers out there because strikers are
It's
they're
a
not there
dying breed.
anymore.
It's
Like
a
what
dying
Ollie
breed.
Watkins, I love him. I love Ollie Watkins. Isaac, I love the fact that he put himself together and started balling. Wilson, unfortunately, gets injured. Tony, unfortunately, they're gambling, but the brother was cooking. I
Yeah.
want all these guys, Nunes, all these guys. I want to see strikers again. I'm a striker guy. I'm not this first nine guy. I had hope in Jesus, and somehow Jesus cannot cling about few games to score. I just want Nunes to be like Oli Watkins and or what these guys were at least they're consistent like
Watkins.
Haaland because these guys are doing very well. I just want him to cook. But the thing is, if you're not consistent as a striker, whether you score there and there, people always say, you're good, but you know what I mean? It's always you're good because the movement Nunes does, why I'm scared of him, it's the movement. It will cause trouble. And guess what happens? There's a guy who loves other people's movement. That's Mo Salah. When Mane and Firmino were there, they would give him movement. And guess what? If there's movement and somebody with technique like Nunes, able to see Mo Salah, able to assist Mo Salah, I think he's assisted him 7 times this season, according to the stats I was told by a Liverpool fan. That's dangerous. And Nunes is dangerous because he's got a big body, he's fast, he's got skill, and yes, he gets into
Yep.
dangerous positions. So that's the guy I'm scared of. And every time Klopp decides to bench Nunes and say he's gonna bring him as a super sub, I'm happy because believe it or not, I know Jota is a bad boy, but I know Jota sometimes goes missing in big games. But Nunes is the danger man for me, so that's the reason why. Because sometimes, if you notice, Diaz struggles against strikers who are big and very mobile. But if you're big and you stay at one position, you've noticed he doesn't struggle. That's why he used to struggle with Harry Kane, who was always mobile, moving around.
Yeah.
But if he plays
That's fair.
Ollie Watkins sometimes just stands there, even though he's fast. So look, big up Nunes, and I hope he does well. And you're not wrong, like Liverpool 12 man, to rate Nunes. It's just that you know yourself. The game is the game. Agendas must agenda. If your man is not bagging consistently, we come with that. But we know as a football
Yeah.
player, he's
That's
probably
fair.
very good as a football player. And I think if Klopp gets a DM in September and then tells the Sabisai and tells McAllister to no longer defend much and go in front and get closer to Nunes, I think you guys are going to be cooking. That's why this game is interesting. I tell people at this point in time, City and Liverpool are no longer very defensive. It's all will outscore you. So I can't wait to see who outscores who. And I know that Mo Salah, as we speak right now, if I was the Premier League, I should just put 1-0 already and put Salah's name because it's oh he always scores against City. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. So just put a 1-0 on Mo Salah. And we know that's gonna happen. We don't know what minute it's gonna happen, but he's gonna bag against us. But look, you know what? I'm happy that Klopp is back. I'm actually happy that Liverpool is number two. As much as I hated you guys years ago, seasons ago, I would rather have you guys back. We've suffered with the noise from Arsenal fans. I've never seen a fan base that's so noisy like Arsenal. So big up that Liverpool is back, and I hope tomorrow it's a good game. I hope we don't get a ball fest.
And 12 man, I'm gonna give you the last talk on this topic, but just to piggyback off
Okay,
of what
good.
Patrick was saying,
Appreciate that.
I did see a bit, just a sample of Nunez when he was playing at Benfica in Portugal, and
Hmm.
from the
When was it? When was it that
the
I
season the
mean, he's
season
there for two
before
years.
he
So was
came to
his first year
Liverpool.
or second year?
The
His
second
first
year,
year
the
or
season
second year?
before he came to
Okay,
Liverpool, and he played against you guys in the Champions League, I believe.
right.
And I thought he was a cracking player. But what I noticed is he did still miss chances in that Benfica team. The difference is he was the guy. He was the main focus. They created the chances for him, and he had the confidence of all those players to know that, you know what, I don't need to double, triple guess what I'm doing. They trust me to just go ahead and do my thing, and that's where I think you get the best performances out of him. So this season now, where he's betting
Hmm.
into the Liverpool team more, I do think that you will get more quality performances from him. And based on the start that he had last season, I could tell that this guy is gonna take a bit of time to settle in. That Prem first season thing is gonna be in effect for him. And if you do look at his goals, because you did mention that you're a stat guy, his goals are
Right.
actually not that bad. But if you actually look at the chances that he's missing in terms of volume and the size of the chances that he's missing, then it does become like a conversation where rival fans like me want to come in and push that agenda. You do have to understand that. But
Right.
just to touch on Jota a little bit as well, I rate him. I think he's your second most clinical player after Salah, in my opinion. I'm not sure if you share that opinion, but I do think that he's a quality player. And Patrick alluded to this last season, but he started with Jota and brought Nunes off the bench, and that didn't work out for you guys as well as you would have hoped. So you're saying Nunes is to start, and I'm sure you do want to throw in a bit of defense in there for him. So go right ahead. The floor is yours.
So I don't necessarily want to make this into a Nunez versus Holland
Mm,
comparison, primarily because look, I'm not disputing the fact that Holland is right now currently the best, striker in the Premier League. Obviously, you don't accumulate the goal tally that he got last year and have this and be deluded to say that that was an exceptional and incredible year for a striker. Um, and he's also, he's doing well this year. I think he's got 13 goals, I want to say, this year or something like that. How many goals does he have this year?
in the Prem, let me check real quick, but I do know that across all competitions, he has 17 goals, which
Okay.
is absolutely crazy.
I
Right
bet
now, he
you.
has 13. Yeah,
Okay. So he's 13. Okay. Like, again, I'm a stat guy, but like sometimes it's easier when you have the stats right in front of you and having to like reflect off the top of your head. Don't want to. I don't. I like to drop accurate stats as well.
yeah.
Sometimes people don't necessarily. They might say something, but it's like it's off. And in comparison, obviously, I know that Darwin in the Prem at least only has like four. So when you're looking at those comparisons, yes, I can understand people making those types of things, those kinds of considerations. But what's funny about it is, out of all of this talk about Holland, which again I just gave him his props and his flowers,
Mhm.
I am gonna bring on some of the thorns on those roses. Okay, and that like it's funny because Holland has a 29% conversion rate. Okay, in the Prem at least, and that is not even top five. Okay, so he's eighth, and when it comes into those numbers, and what's funny about it is, you do have a player that's actually better than that on your own team. So Alvarez is a better when it comes to his conversion rate, is doing better when it comes to his when you add up his xG, non-penalty xG, and you end up like the x, because we're looking at a player in the sense of Darwin Nunez doesn't take our penalties, for instance. Okay,
Mm,
Salah does. Okay, so when we're looking at goal,
that's fair.
so when it looks at penalty goals, and then you'll see a more accurate. That's something I always consider, because there's a stat out there called most goals added. Okay, and the stat goes basically, it's about most non-penalty goals added, most non-penalty expected goals, which is xG, and then your non-penalty xG on target. Okay, and when you add up those things again, Holland's not even in that list. He's not even in the top 10. Okay. But Alvarez is, you know? So those are parts and points of why I'm saying like Alvarez ends up being eighth on that list. Nunez happens to be sixth on that list. Okay. As in, you talked about having opportunities and eating your dinner. I think more so people focus on, yes, he's had some big misses. He's had some misses that he should have made, or he's missed some things where he's made them more difficult. And I'm speaking on Darwin.
Yeah.
He's made more these opportunities more difficult than they had to be, or maybe he misses, and everyone just focus and goes to that lazy narrative of saying, "Oh, he has this, and he needs to do this better," or he misses a lot. He misses a lot. But when you actually construct the numbers, he takes advantage of his opportunities more so than you think, and more so than a lot of players that do get these opportunities actually do get. Because Holland gets a lot of volume towards him, and Holland also gets penalty goals. Okay, so I know that again. I don't want to make it into this Holland versus Nunez thing, because again, Holland is the best striker in the league when it comes to goal tally. However, I happen to think that Nunez is a more complete striker. And what I mean by complete striker, I mean Nunez offers not only a goal threat, but he also offers press. He offers energy. He also has all those commitments as in pace, all
Off the
these
ball
different things,
qualities.
off the ball qualities that are important. And all those things can be said and done. Holland has definitely some of those features as well. However, I just think that Nunez has a more complete game because Liverpool and the Klopp system forces you to be a more complete and rounded player. You can't just be the poacher, or you can't be just someone that's just going to like not commit and backtrack and try to get into the flow of the defensive press. And those are things that I think Nunez brings, and those are things that I enjoy seeing from Nunez's game.
So very interesting that you mentioned that. Um, I do have to chip in a bit there. You did say the Liverpool system requires players to have those aspects to their game. I'd argue just the same for Manchester City. No, it's a bit different because we saw how Pep used the previous version of Erling Haaland year one to do
Mm-hmm.
what he did last season. But I would also say that if you look at the Erling Haaland that came in on day one versus West Ham versus our last game up against Chelsea, he's a slightly different player now, and he has improved in a lot of those ways. So I do think that in our system, he's gonna continue to improve in that way. I do
Sure,
think
sure.
now he's dropping a lot deeper sometimes, and he's
Mm-hmm.
getting onto the ball, playing some neat passes and helping us build up play without him being on the end of them. So bringing that into his game is gonna change his game a bit more. And let me just say, I know you did say you didn't want to make this a Haaland versus Nunes debate, but I firmly believe that if it was to be a Haaland versus debate, Haaland is winning that debate. I'm not letting you walk away with a Nunes the one that I'm backing it to the end of the hill. If you want to do the same
He's
with Nunes,
saying,
that's fine. But I do know that it would be a conversation because you would have points to prove in your perspective as well. But what I do want to say is looking at these two players, you're always gonna have a situation of these are undeniable areas, qualities, categories that Nunes will beat Haaland in, and vice
Yeah,
versa.
true.
It's gonna
Yeah.
be the same. But if we're gonna look at overall what each player is gonna offer you, I know I'm personally always picking Haaland. I know Patrick is always gonna be picking Haaland as well.
we all have
Um,
biases.
I'm actually,
yeah, I
I'm
know.
I
actually
mean,
picking
That
come
comes
on.
Alvarez.
into it.
It's like, I mean,
That comes into it
I'm
as
actually
well.
picking Al. Can I bring Alvarez to the
yeah.
fight? Alvarez
100%.
to the fight. Can I bring Alvarez to the fight? I'm picking Alvarez.
Well, there you go. But what I'm saying, and again with Alvarez, there are tons of qualities you could list for Alvarez that would beat Haaland in those respective categories, and vice versa as well. So preference comes down into it, bias comes down into it,
Well,
and
yeah,
even
it's,
outside of all of those stuff, you can
yeah,
have a fair conversation to where it might sway to one or the other side. But
right.
yeah, I have no problem giving Nunes his props though. I do think that so far coming into the team, he's done a good job for Liverpool since he's came in, a good enough job, I should say, and that is more likely going to improve than decrease from where it is now. I do want to touch back into the comments a bit. There have been a bit here because we have been going on into that topic. The next topic that we're going on to, and we can start with you, Patrick, for this one. But I'm looking at our winger versus their fullback, whether it's gonna be Grealish or Doku coming up against Trent on that right hand side. So, Patrick, we can start with you on that one. But let me get into these comments first. MCFR TV says it's going to be a good atmosphere. Hopefully, no coin and rock throwing from either set of fans. 100%. Hopefully, everyone who does go into the game can leave the game safely. Go enjoy the
Absolutely.
atmosphere,
Absolutely.
regardless of what the result is. I don't think that it should go anywhere outside of that. He also says he got himself some Christmas decorations for his stream setup. Hey, I'm excited to see it, bro. Let me know when you have everything set up. Shoot me the link. I'll definitely stop by because I do enjoy watching your streams. And for anyone who isn't familiar with MCFR TV's channel, go show him some love and support. He has me on sometimes. We do have some good conversations over there, so definitely show him some love. Um, Let me see. We have Adam MCFC Quinn as well. Big up to you. Thanks for being here. I don't think I've seen you here for a while now, but always welcome. Always welcome for sure. Says City 4-1 tomorrow. Easy, easy win. This is a very confident man right here. We will get into predictions. We haven't as yet, but definitely stay tuned because we have to get into those predictions for sure. Patrick, go ahead and kick it off. Do you think it would be Grealish or Doku? Do you have a preference into which one you want to see? And how do you think we'll do on that left hand side?
I
All
think
right.
you're on mute.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if is he not here, or if he's not here, you can go ahead, tough man. Let me know your thoughts on that side.
Okay,
If you
so
want my
just
opinion to start, I do
yes, yeah.
think it will
Let
be
me.
Grealish. So let me know Grealish versus Trent. What are you thinking?
Okay, so again, I'd like to consider myself part of the Liverpool Defense League. I also like to think of myself as, and there are others. There are a few others that do sit on that board with me. But why I reference that as such is because when it comes to, again, Trent, the narrative I spoke about earlier. Um, I don't think sometimes I think people get into, and I'm not saying you at all. I'm not saying you. I'm not saying
Mm,
it looks like Patrick just left. I'm not saying Patrick narratives or they have their own agenda that narrative at all. Lines like, oh, uh, Trent is bad defensively, or he's a poor. He can't play defense. He's not a right back. He's not this. He's not that. Those are like lazy narratives. And why I call them lazy narratives is that none of these same pundits, quote unquote, were saying that when we won the Champions League. None of these same pundits were saying that when we won the league. None of these same pundits were saying it for any of those periods of the time leading up to those victories. It's just something as of late when a lot of other components of our team have broken down somewhat. Our midfield was suspect last year. I will openly say that. Okay, we had a lot of tired legs, and we had a lot of players that were on what seemed to be borrowed time. Okay, However, once we've gotten a refresh, if you want to put it that, in our midfield, and we brought in some new components to our front line, and we've even solidified some of the differences or things that we had to do with our back line by bringing some by really trusting in some of our youth players and such. You've
mm,
seen a difference. You've seen a real difference in our play. And people can say, oh, our defense is this, our defense is that. We have the lowest amount of goals scored, conceded this year. Like, as
yeah.
in, there are teams that have scored on us. I'm not saying that they haven't, but it ends up being, if you said, my team's going to score at least 3 goals, and then yet you're going to give up one, I'm cool with that. I'm not such a clean sheet merchant that's going to be the difference maker in our games. It's more so about what our offensive progress or what our process is. And when it comes to Trent alone, and we're going to reference this Trent because you brought up that point against Trent versus Grealish. Um, Grealish had a very good game last year against him. That I can concede. Okay. However, I still think that there's a difference in Trent this year in the sense of, by him playing this inverted role, it presents a completely different process when it comes to his performances or
Mm.
his where he has to be, like,
His
really.
responsibilities.
Yes, exactly. His responsibilities on the pitch are completely different, and people are still looking at it from that narrow and sometimes that unfortunately lazy punditry, that they're looking at it from that narrow perspective of saying, "Oh, well, a right back has to do this." And I just told you he's not necessarily a right back per se, in that he's not playing a you know definitional right back position. He's redefined that definition for right back already, in my opinion, in that by possibly one of the most complete and versatile right backs in the history of the game. But he's also taken it to a point where this right back that we're referencing is now playing in the midfield. He now seeing him way up on the wing or sometimes centrally, like, as he's playing an inverted halfback role now, and that's different in that from the position at all. And you, being a City fan, should really conceptualize that, considering what that's done to, for instance, Stone's game, or, like, the differences that they've utilized by having these players I mean, I've seen Silva play in a what was he playing, like a fullback position, and
Left back. Hmm.
exactly,
Yeah.
So I mean, like when it comes to those things, it's like one of those things where it's like people have to get out of their comfort zone and understand that the game is a very, very complex, its complexities of this game are immense. And when you're dealing with two amazing coaches, as in Pep and Klopp, and the nuances and the subtle differences and changes and twerks and everything else that they put into their players and positional formations, you have to really factor that in and say we're not just talking about a right back. We're talking about a player. Let's just talk about Trent as a player. And I think Trent is one of the most dynamic players in the game. And that's how I look
So
at it.
I can add to that real easy because we have a couple examples in our team of the same thing. And I actually think you picked the wrong one going for Stones. I always compare Trent to Cancelo because it's the
Hmm.
same narrative that they push that oh he can't defend, he shouldn't be in the team. Like his main role in the team is not to defend though. Like you see
Hmm.
what he does on the ball going forward. He scores
Sure.
goals, he creates chances. He's an exceptional dribbler, crosser of the
Hmm.
ball, like how he picks up space in those areas. Him inverting changes our game completely
Right.
versus him not being there and us having a traditional left back, which is good in its own way, but
Hmm.
sometimes you do have a player like Trent and Cancelo who they're so good at what they do offer to you. You
Hmm.
do have to the good outweighs the bad, the pros outweigh the cons, and you do have to incorporate them in your team and adjust for it accordingly.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would say the same for Edison. There's this ongoing is Edison better than Allison debate. Allison
Hmm.
is clear of Edison, all that stuff. I don't necessarily buy into that because for what Ederson's role is at City, Allison doesn't do it better. But
Okay.
Allison has his attributes that are clearly better than Ederson's, which no one's gonna debate or argue. But
Okay.
as a City fan, I'm sure a majority of us would say, you know what, we'll take Ederson because of how we choose to play, how Pep wants to play, and he's the best at doing that. So I think it's the same thing for Trent in how you guys adjust. You would see from what I saw from you guys last season, I would see Van Dijk moving more centrally and Konate moving over to that right hand side
Hmm.
where to help out Trent whenever he comes under if any 1v1 that turns into a 2v1 situation really
Hmm.
quickly per se, and that gives you guys a lot more balance and platform to move on from. I heard
Hmm.
someone say today Liverpool, not Liverpool, Van Dijk is basically two defenders in one. Well, I do have to agree, especially with the form that he's on right now. I think that type of setup definitely works. Do you think that's how you guys will accommodate for Trent on that right hand side, or
I do agree with your analysis about how we set up. I don't think that Kanate, and I did mention I think Kanate is not going to play
okay?
this weekend. So you will see Matip, but I believe I actually like Matip in that role more so than Kanate. I think that this Matip's experience and veteran knowledge of the game is a little bit more impactful in that role that he's going to have to
Mhm.
play as being that right center back
I like
slash
Matip.
right back cover. Again, though, my pushback when you say Cancelo, who is an exceptional player in itself, there's a difference though in that I think that Cancelo and Trent are two different players when it comes to mentality. And what I mean by mentality is that I think that Trent is a player that not only is going to buy into a system or buy into his coach saying, "Hey, I want you to do this or do that," and he's going to do his best to perform those skills. I don't think Cancelo does that. Cancelo is the reason. There's a reason why Cancelo is no longer with City, and why you had
Mhm.
a quick right back or a full back position nowadays in the game is you don't backs into the offensive fold. So you're looking at someone that has at least those skills and not necessarily focused on their defensive skills. You're more so looking at can they bring anything offensively when it comes to a lot of fullbacks.
Mhm.
That's not for every team, but that's what our game has seemed to, has seemed to progress into when it comes to when you see these fullbacks that nowadays, where whether it's your Alfonso Davies or your Robertsons or whether it's Trent, or whether it's Reece James, like those kinds of players that are a little bit have a little bit more in their offensive locker than they do their defensive locker per se.
Yeah.
But when it comes to trying to compare offensively wise, as in defensively wise, excuse me, Cancelo to Trent, Trent's numbers are better Cancelo's. You can just look them up. Okay, so I get those things, and I get people want to say, "Oh, well, let's just compare these two." They're not comparable because Trent's numbers far exceed Cancelo's numbers defensively, and it's just that's just the fact of the matter. So I can understand when people try to make the Reece James comparisons per se. I still think that Trent is better than Reece James, but then if you want to go is to say Walker, for instance, then yes, Kyle Walker is a better defensive player because one, I think he has more pace, so he's able to contend against right back or in his right back position. He's able to contend against opposition a little bit better in that
Mm.
sense. And also he has more physicality. He's a bigger, more physical presence than Trent is. So therefore he's able to utilize those capabilities a little bit more so than Trent can. But I would definitely say that, for instance, though, Trent is a better offensive talent than Walker is, for instance. So you're gonna lose and give and everything. And as much as people want to like focus in on Trent's defense, hey, you can't you can't score the ball if you don't have the ball. You know,
Mm.
so possession is a primary concept when it comes to factoring in on defenses. And I think that it affects the rhythm of the game, affects how players are able to get be able into better places or better spaces. And it's going to be a matter of like how we go about our press and how you go about your possession based formation or format for your team. And
I
when it
hear you.
comes to Liverpool, we have progressed into, and this is one of the things that Klopp has stressed, and that is being a more possession based team. So I think that you're going to come across a lot more involved in it. And I mean, like, and I'm looking at the chat also. I mean, everyone has their preferences on who you want to take when it comes
Mm.
to your preference of players. You can take Reece James. I'm taking Trent all day, especially considering that you can say what you want about Reece James, but Reece James has been very rare, has as of late has been his availability has been suspect. Okay,
Very,
so
very, very much so.
take your Reece James. He'll be watching the game on the sideline with you most likely more so than my Trent or even your Kyle Walker. So there you go.
I mean, that's why I call context, right? So,
Mhm.
like, the injury issues are the context in that situation. Cancelo's mentality are the context on his situation. To be completely honest with you, I don't feel like defending Cancelo right now. Like,
Okay.
how he left the club was is an absolute disgrace in my opinion, and
Right.
I do think that he needed to leave. And in that regard, mentality wise, I completely agree with you because I don't see
It's an
Trent as
important
the type
part
of
too, right?
person. I don't
It's an
see Trent as
important.
the
I
type
just
of
want to
person
interject.
to
It's an
react in
important
that
part, right?
situation.
Mhm.
So yeah, I do think it's very important, and we actually try to go for players who are not like that personality
Exactly.
wise to
Exactly.
help
Don't
with
want
the squad
cancers in the locker
harmony.
room. You do not
Uh,
want cancers in the locker room.
yeah,
Cancers in the
and
locker room
I
are the
don't
one of the
think
worst things to have.
I don't
Absolute
think
worst thing.
Trent would bring that to our locker room if he was a City player per se. So I do want to give him his props in that regard. But where I was comparing them, it was more along the lines of this is the best part of their game going forward.
Mhm.
Defensively, it's not their strongest point. Just like how Jesus was saying, like scoring goals isn't his strongest point. We know
Mhm.
defensively, these two guys aren't the best defenders in their particular position. And if we want to discuss who is better at what individually, that's a completely different conversation. But in terms of more using them for their offensive capabilities or on the ball qualities rather
Mhm.
than the opposite, that's where I was trying to make that comparison. But um, I do have to agree with Frankly, like player for player wise, in terms of ability, both fully fit. I do think Reece James edges Trent. I'm not saying he's clear. I do hear that a lot. I
And
don't think he's clear because
so how is he? How does and I again I know we're how is Reece Trent?
so I do
You
he's
don't
much
think that
better
Trent
all
is
rounded.
clear of Reece? Yeah, the numbers
Trent
will
for
not only
me,
tell you
Trent
otherwise.
is
They'll
Trent
they'll
is
underline it. They'll bring the highlighter out.
hold on. Let me explain this just a little bit. With Trent, I think his passing and crossing ability are amongst the best in the league. Right?
Right.
Let's put that there.
Mhm.
Reece James, I do think he's elite in that regard as well because there was a
He is
point
an
under
exceptional player.
Tuchel,
Yeah,
under
no
Tuchel,
shade,
he
no shade
was
to Reece James.
their
He's an exceptional.
best. He was their best chance creator in the whole team, and he was their right back. Same, similar for Liverpool, you would argue,
Yeah,
because Trent is amazing in that regard. But
and
that's
Robbo,
why I do
and
have to give. I
don't
think
sleep on Robbo either. Robbo has exceptional ability as well. So
no, no, of course, of course, of course. I have a lot of time for Robertson as well. But in terms of Reece James, in which I don't even know how we're
I don't know
talking
how
about
we got to
so much
Reece James, but
in a City
it is,
Liverpool
yeah, yeah.
preview, but let's go for it. With Reece James, I think defensively is where he gets a lot of his props in terms of that Reece James strength debate, because I can make a debate for him in terms of going forward, even though I would argue that Trent edges it, but
Mhm.
defensively, I think there's less of a comparison to make there. So if you want a more all-rounded player, then you would argue that Reece James is the better option for that. But there are tons of other contexts in that regard. In terms of going forward, Trent is going to do that better. In terms of availability, Trent is going to be there way more often. In terms
Mhm.
of, well, I guess in terms of versatility, you would get more of that from Reece James, because I do know he steps into centre back as well.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if he's played left back before. I don't think it would be the craziest thing in the world, but I do think there's tons of quality between both players. I don't think that's what you're arguing, anyways. But
No,
I do think
yeah.
that a large part of it is preference, and like you said before, the Haaland thing, bias does come into it at some point in time. So you're looking at Trent as a player you already have and wouldn't change. So I expect you to say you would definitely keep Trent over the players that we're
Oh,
comparing
dang,
him
the
to.
Scouser.
Yeah, no, no, he's one of your own. Yeah, yeah, I get it. Yo, you think no? You think anyone can push Saka to me over Foden? That's mad. I don't care how many numbers you want to show me. I don't care. And you mentioned
Okay,
being a stats guy before.
right.
I like stats, but you know what? For me, stats are half of the story. Not
No, I
twenty
agree.
percent,
They're not
not
all.
ten
They're not
percent.
the complete
Some
story.
some
Absolutely.
people give it 10% of the story. Some people give it 80 and 90. Like I think it's
Mhm.
half. I think it's very, very important for you to have a statistical understanding of what's going on, and at the
Mhm.
same time, you look at you look at eye test, and that should tell you the other half. In which I look at that first, and then I corroborate that with the stats. That's how I like to go about it. But that's just my take on the Reece James debate. It's not a whole lot in it. I wouldn't get angry at anyone saying they take Trent over Reece James, but me personally, I do give him that slight edge.
I mean, the
But
guy's played 5 games this season.
yeah, like I said, that's where the conversation
Reece
just
James has
goes
played
straight
five
downhill for
games
him.
this season, you know,
I go
and
straight
and
downhill for him,
last year
but
was not exactly a great year for availability for him. And look, Trent's had his injuries as well, but I mean, it's just so much so. I get a lot of flack for when I stick up for Thiago,
yeah,
or if I stick up for some of these other players that have, had their bouts of injuries and recovering from them as well. Same bout, same defense I utilized when it came to like when it comes to even Virgil van Dijk. I mean, a lot of people have been very very critical of the player and everything else, and I've been saying, hey, it usually takes a year to 2 years for you to get back from that kind of injury. That knee injury that he suffered is for you to see the same results or same pace or same explosion when it comes to speed and everything else. Those things are going to occur like a little bit further down the line, and it's a matter of like getting over that obstacle of it's about getting over that obstacle of believing in whatever limb or injured part of you
yeah,
is beyond you, is past you, and you can start like you just don't even think about it any longer. And that's what it comes down to. A lot of different these players is that like it's about the mentality that they bring. It's about the presence that they bring about that. My my vice captain, Trent, has taken on as being the vice captain as important a very important aspect of his game. I think it's the same aspect that I could say for Virgil as well. I've been saying that Virgil's been back, or that Virgil will show that he's back this year because of that two year break. I was clipped up. I was laughed at or mocked or used up used in discussions, and it's one of those things that now all of a sudden it's almost like one of those it's that dopamine that goes off in your head that makes you validation, dopamine at least, that you start to see these things actually come to fruition in the sense of VVD has and is showing his merit or showing his worth, showing his ability, his presence. I think the same for Trent. Trent has had a somewhat of a slippery or a rocky beginning in of the season by a couple having some really horrible howlers in games. But I think he's gone past that. He's also recognized that he's got a team that's going to help pick him up. And you know what? A lot of times we focus on individual talents and individual players, but it's about how your team responds. It's about how as your team responds to, you know, making sure that you bring out the presence and the greatness that you have inside you.
Can I just add something to that real quick?
Sure.
Because this is gonna be weird, but I'm gonna compare Trent to Haaland now, right?
Hmm.
So one thing I've noticed with watching Trent occasionally, I don't watch any rival team consistently. By the way, I try to keep informed as much as I can and
Hmm.
watch as much games as I can of you guys. But my main priority is watching Manchester City, and that's not gonna change. But from what I have seen from Trent over the past couple of months, I do think that he has games where he puts in solid defensive performances, but they don't get talked about because there aren't the majority of the games that the rivals do watch. There's a certain level that he doesn't really seem to go past. So if he does have a decent game that people don't want to give him props for what is an
Exactly.
improvement on what
Exactly.
they had in their head of him being defensively. I think it's the same thing for Haaland where in those situations, like I mentioned, he's dropping deep and getting on the ball a lot more and getting way more involved than he would have been in his first 5, 10 games at Manchester City. But he doesn't get the props for that because in the games that people do watch, he's playing more of as a box striker, playing a different
Hmm.
role where he, maybe for example against Arsenal last season at the Etihad, he was there up top. We played the
Hmm.
ball directly from Ederson into him, and he'd head it down into KDB, and then boom, we have possession and we start from there at the half line.
Right.
Versus playing from the back and then we're playing through the defense and coming up into the midfield area from there. Like I think rivals don't really pay too much attention to their rival teams, and it's understandable. But at the same time,
Some of
like
us don't. Some of us do. You as a content creator, you might because like
yeah,
you have to.
I try
You're
to. I
going to get
try
asked
to.
these questions. Like I'm being brought on into into the confines of the cityhood. And I have to obviously understand what your game is about. I have to understand
Yeah.
what your players are about and everything else because, like, as in, for me, I don't just always just watch my own team play and that's it. If I only watch my own team play, then I'm not going to get a perspective on how our competition plays. And
Mm,
obviously, our competition is going to play differently against us than they do against other
other
teams.
teams, yeah, hundred
So
percent.
yeah, and I think the last interjection I wanted to make, I didn't mean to cut across you, is that
All
um,
good.
the when you said that name KDB, that is a big exclusion in the variable
Yes.
of your equation, you know, and KDB is a difference maker. As in, like when Henderson was at the top of his game and he was able to track back and and everything else, and you're able to properly press and be able to properly put on the defensive measures of what Klopp wanted from this team. Trent excelled. Trent wasn't. People didn't say anything about Trent's defense. But then when Henderson wasn't able to do the level of defensive measures that were needed to bring out the right proper press and proper aspects of our defense, it and ended up highlighting things more so than other. And
Mm,
it's the same. And why I make that comparison is because again, you're talking about Holland tracking back, doing more than he normally has to do. Well, one of the reasons why I have perceived that is because you don't have a KDB there. KDB opens up the game differently for you than when he's not in the lineup, and you're going to have to rely on players doing a little bit outside of their game or doing things that they normally aren't required to do. And now they're going to have to be required to do it because certain players are doing other things or such other things, like you said about Silva playing left back, or they're playing out of position, playing different roles because certain players that the system somewhat revolves around
mm,
aren't there. So
I'm
now
listening.
you have to make the sauce with a little bit different ingredients. That's all.
I hear that. I hear the wisdom in that for sure. But you also have to consider that the fact that Haaland is proving now that he can do that, when KDB does eventually come back into the team, that ability is not going to leave him. That's gonna give Pep an extra
Yeah,
option now. Like, hey, I
yeah,
can have you stay up here this game, and I can have you drop right next to KDB the week after that. So it does give us a bit more tools in our toolbox in that
yeah.
regard. But
I
to
can give
get
you
back
that.
to
I
to
can give
get
you that.
back to the main question I was asking before, though, I didn't give you my thoughts on the Grealish versus Trent.
Yeah.
Um, Personally, matchup wise, I would love to see it be Doku, but
Don't you think that's going to be? You think it's going to be Grealish over Doku? Are you going
so
to bring up Are you going to bring up a lineup, or
now
do you already?
I don't like doing predicted lineups. To be
Okay.
honest with you, I really don't because Pep, it's really difficult to get
Oh,
into that
it's
guy's
next to
head.
impossible to do it for
It's yeah, it's
top
we call it pep roulette, right? So like it
Pep
really
Roulette.
does
That's a
feel
good
like
one.
he just puts all the names in a big basket, shakes it up, and then just pulls names out randomly for each position. I really don't know how he decides who starts. All I
Hmm.
can say is I do expect Akanji to start because he loves playing Akanji. That's and obviously Haaland is gonna play. That's my firm belief. Everything else and Rodri, everything else is basically up in the air. So on that side, I do think he's gonna go with Grealish, particularly to give respect to Mo Salah. I don't think as Ake isn't available to play this game, so it's gonna be Salah versus Gvardiol.
Hmm.
And I don't think he's gonna leave Guardiola off the back of a subpar performance against Chelsea, coming up against one of the best and most informed wingers in the league right now, who is Mo Salah. So I think he's and Doku, as much as he's starting to drop back now and pick up more defensive responsibilities, I
Hmm.
don't think he's as good at it as Grealish. Like it's all good wanting to go back and actually coming back, but in terms of what you do in those situations, Grealish is gonna give you more than Doku will. So I think I think it's gonna be a case of it really could be Grealish on the left, Foden on the right. I think it's going to be Grealish on the left, Doku on the right. So we might potentially see Doku versus Simicas, which I'd love to get your thoughts on that as well. But
Okay.
Grealish, I do think Grealish has enough to handle Trent, and I think in his last couple of games he's been coming up with some good performances. I know he didn't start against Chelsea, but the games before that, I've been happy with what I've been seeing from Grealish, particularly in the Manchester Derby. So
Grealish is
um,
grown. Yeah, it helps when you can have $100 million player, £100 million player sit the bench pretty much a good portion of his first year, and then but still keep enough of a mindset
to win
uh,
us a treble the next year.
yeah, 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 go
Yeah.
be a part of something and contribute the next year and be and have some influential performances in that year that follows that first year. So you know, so yeah, props out to Grealish. It hurts to
So
say, but
I think that's gonna be a very interesting, less exciting than if it was Doku versus Trent. I think that would have everyone's eyes, and it very well might be because, like I said, I'm not good at predicting this type of stuff. But based
mm,
on that Salah factor, and we saw him do it at the Etihad last season as well. I'm sure you remember Salah was about to put that second goal in, and Grealish was sprinting back with
yeah, yeah, oh,
everything,
yeah. Oh,
and he
I know. Yeah,
blocked
I
it
remember that. Yeah,
last minute. I was so
yeah,
shocked. My heart was up here, bro. And it's
yeah.
I think he's looking at that and he's saying, you know what, in this type of match that we're expecting, he's going to be
He was having a
priceless.
good game. He was having a good game that matchup, though. That game was a very good game for him. And I think
Yeah,
that again, it goes to mentality. I mean, sometimes like it's about if you're having a bad game, how do you get despite having a bad game, make a moment, and make that moment a positive rather than a negative moment. Plenty of players have bad games, but you know what? It's the same. Like I've seen Mo Salah have like a pretty much a bad game. For instance, I think I want to say the Everton match. He did not perform that well in our Everton match. Which is a Merseyside derby, and like as in you're dealing with all the different things, such and such. But yet he still ended up getting, I think, a goal or if not two goals in that match, I think, or something like that. So, and one was a penalty, obviously. But so why I'm bringing that up is that it's not about what you do. It's not about the whole like game of what you've done. It's more about when you have the opportunity to make a moment, make the moment count. And you're right. I mean, Grealish made a lot of moments count in that matchup, and he was the man of the match of that game for sure.
I remember after that game, we were so confused. Like, who do we give the man of the match to? KDB was excellent. Alvarez was excellent. Grealish was excellent.
I
And
think it was Grealish for sure. I think it was Grealish.
there was
Per
a there was
person,
a
I thought
big
Grealish.
there was a big what was I gonna say? There's a big debate for it to be KDB though, because I think he had scored and assisted Grealish's goal as well,
Mhm.
and he had an exceptional performance outside of that. But I mean, that's neither here nor
Yeah,
there.
that's the past.
Um, Haaland versus VVD. How you feeling about that matchup?
I'm very very I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking
Yeah, I
forward
would
to
I
it
would assume so. I would assume so.
because
And
like realistically, again, there's a lot of people out there that have already put the death nail in VVD. A lot of people are saying he's done, he's dusted, he's no longer, he's lost a pace, he's lost a step, he's this, he's that,
mm,
and yada yada yada. And I'm just like, keep hating on. I mean, keep doubting them. And the louder you get. And I mean, I'm talking about some people from my own fan base that have said
yeah,
those things. And that's the most
I heard it.
depressing and disappointing thing to see is when your own fan base gives up hope or gives up on your own player brethren. And I'm not that person. It's the reason why I carry this name of Liberal 12th Mans, because you know what, this is my squad, this is my team. These are, whether you're the coach, whether you're the players, whether you're the actual supporters, you're all Reds to me. So I always think of it as like, you know what, we walk together always, and that's how I look at it. So
That's
yeah,
fair. That's fair.
um, I'm very intrigued to see how and what's going to happen in this matchup. I don't necessarily know if you're going to see a lot of VVD versus Holland per se. I think
Mm.
so. You'll see a little bit more of Holland versus Matip, or something along those lines. As in,
I prefer
um,
that, to be honest. I
yeah,
prefer
okay.
Haaland going up against Matip than against Van Dijk. And it's funny because I remember an interview where Van Dijk was asked who is the most difficult opponent he's ever gone up against. I don't know if you've seen that. Do you know
Yeah,
who he
I
said?
know, I know you're referencing. Yeah, and he said Holland. Yeah,
He actually said Aguero.
or
Aguero
where?
is the most difficult opponent that he's come up against. And all the reasons that he gave were areas that Alvarez is very strong in. And I remember Alvarez having a good game against Van Dijk in that 4-1 game.
Hmm.
So I
Alvarez is
feel
not
like
to be not to be overlooked.
no,
Alvarez is
no,
having an
definitely not. He's a
exceptional
quality
year.
player.
I
And
think he's a quality player, exceptional year, and it's a real testament of your scouting that you
mm,
got him for the price you got him for, and for the fact that you're able to get a player like as of his quality and talent to be able to buy into knowing you're not necessarily going to be the starter per se. You might have to fight for minutes, if not fight for a position.
and I do want to say on Alvarez, this season he has
Mm.
had some brilliant performances. He's also had some poor performances in other games, but the role that he's playing isn't what I would consider his best role. I think he's massively playing out of position.
Right, he's playing
He's a
midfielder.
striker in my
Yeah.
opinion. He is a number nine, an out and out striker, bagsman, and he can't play in that role obviously because Erling Haaland is there, and I
Right.
still have this pipe dream, this hope in the back of my mind that Pep is going to concede and play that front two that I want to see over time.
Mm.
Maybe not this year, maybe next season, but I do hope that Alvarez can find a more stable position for himself. Right now, I think it's hard to argue him out of playing his current midfield position because he, like I said, have had those big performances in other games. But when it doesn't work for him, and I don't think he's very creative in that type of role, in which you're playing a number 10, I want you to be one of the main chance creators, and it's just not
Right.
his game. So it's a bit unfortunate for and then difficult for me to judge him in that type of role, knowing
Mhm.
that he's doing his best and playing out of position, but he's also undroppable just because of what he's done this season, and he's shown us free kicks he can take that, coming up
Mhm.
with clutch goals in moments that we do need him, and
Mhm.
then just linking up with the players around him. I think he has a really good link up with Foden. I think he has a good link up with Haaland as well. Bernardo Silva and Alvarez and Doku. That's a really good link up coming up in the last couple of games as well. It's very
Mhm.
difficult to take him out of this team with what he has shown us so far this season. Let me bring in my guy, Veta Games, for the last bit of this show. Big up to you, bro. Thank you for being here.
What's good? What's good?
That's good. How are you? How are you, Vader?
I'm doing all right, man. Nice to meet you. 12th
Pleasure,
man.
pleasure to meet you. Yes, I've seen you on. I will say, Clinical is getting all the heavyweights to come out, the city
Hey,
heavyweights to come out and join us. This is good.
He's got a tight circle, man. He's got a
Yeah,
tight
it's
circle.
good. That's
It's the
good.
love. I appreciate all the love. You guys know that. Right now we're talking about Haaland versus VVD, or Haaland versus Matip. Him going up against their centre backs, and it is the back end of the show. I
Hmm.
think the stream's gonna shut off in about 12 minutes because I got the free version. My bad, guys. But
Mm-hmm.
Peter, let me know what your thoughts are on that matchup, and we'll move on
Yeah.
to Guardiola versus Salah after that.
So I would never accuse 12th man of doing this, but I've heard some Liverpool fans say that they would actually prefer Holland. They prefer Holland because they think he takes a little bit away from City in terms of their creativity and how they can really attack and get after goals, and would actually prefer the versatility and the range of Alvarez. And I heard earlier that VVD quote about the toughest that he's had was Aguero, and I think in terms of strikers, Alvarez is probably closer to that than Holland, but physicality that Holland possesses, right? And I know on the eye he's not a sexy football player. You know what I mean? He's tall, so everything looks awkward and looks cumbersome, and he doesn't quite have the flow. But and I stress this, his effectiveness is ridiculous. You can't take away this 13 goals in 12 games. Like I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You could have the most complete striker you want. No one's doing numbers like this, man. So I want to see this matchup. I want to see it because I respect VBD. Clinical,
Yeah.
we were trying to get him, and how things fell, and obviously with Liverpool wanting him and getting him, it was kind of like, damn, I have to see him every time playing well for Liverpool. I'm happy with the defenders that we have, but I want to see this matchup now. I want to see VVD a lot healthier, obviously, and I think back to his ways. And I want to see Holland year two, maybe righting the wrongs of some of the games that have been played out. Liverpool versus City. You know what I mean? So VVD, Holland, I think, is going to play a lot on his shoulder, but we know Holland likes to get onto his left foot. So I think he's going to maybe start off more on VVD's side, but drift and Kanate, if it happens to be Kanate on that side, to maybe be more of the defender for him. That's how I see it. But I want to see this matchup, and it's not even about goals. You know this. Yes, he's a goal machine, but I watch games for movement. I watch games for instructions. I watch games to see like how did each players fight, like how did they battle each other, and I want to see that aspect of it. I want to see it, man. I think it's going to be a good matchup.
No, that's fair. And unfortunately, I do think that it is a matchup that kind of fits VVD in terms of coming up against the more physical type of players. Just you mentioned how built Haaland is, but it's basically the same for VVD.
Yeah,
So I hope if it is a case of them canceling out each other, it's going to be better for Liverpool. So, but I do trust Haaland in terms of his positioning and getting into the right areas when we do need him. He does make a lot of slick runs where he gets away from his defender easily. Where I'm worried is us finding him when he does do that, because we've been doing a poor job of that recently. It's like if the chance isn't completely on, then we're not passing the ball. So it's very
yeah,
frustrating, and I'm sure you share that sentiment later.
yeah.
But 12 man, let me know how you're feeling about Salah versus Vardial. I would have to assume you're super confident coming into this just
No,
off of
no.
Salah's form alone. Nothing against Vardial, but let me know what you're thinking.
Look, Josko is a talented player. It's someone that I had targeted as being one of the targets that I wanted to see us go for. To tell you the truth, I think he's a talented player. Obviously, he's a Liverpool. As a youth, he was a Liverpool fan, so that helps as well. But now that he's wearing blue, it's a different story. So, so yeah, when it comes to a lot of what I'm seeing about the matchups that we're going to have, there's a lot of matchups on this in this game. They're going to be fun. They're going to be definitely enjoyable to watch for the neutral as well as the rivals. And there's things about this game that I'm looking forward to, which as I'm looking to see uh, how Pep lines up his players. I think though Pep does something very similar to Klopp, and I've called it. This is the term I've referenced it as. It's called an amoeba style formation, as in it's a formation that whereas in you might see. I know that they come out as 3-2-4-1. I think they come out in somewhat. You can call it that. But then again, these players are so interchangeable. They end up filling in different roles. They end up filling different spots in different places on the pitch, so that it's never really a true you can never say, oh, this is going to be the formation for the
Yeah.
entire matchup. you know.
Mhm.
So a lot of the times it gets back to those things I was speaking about earlier about complexities with the game, in that a lot of these players are going to create really dynamic matchups, and it's because of these two dynamic coaches have such an immensely incredible, mind when it comes to the formations and the roles that they put these players into. And I'm looking at a lot of different matchups for sure, because I looked at that when I said 3-2-4-1. You also have, like, you obviously have Holland in the front, but then you also have Foden, Alvarez, Silva, Grealish. That's a dynamic
Yeah.
four right there in itself. So yeah, it's going to be a very, very interesting situation where you're going to put a lot of pressure on a lot of players on our midfield. But hey, I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes forward, because I'm very big on Dom Sabasalai, basically. I think McAllister has been undervalued this year, despite the fact he's playing quote unquote in a different role. But yet he does play DM for Argentina, for instance. So I mean, there are players. It's a perspective thing. Is that sometimes that lazy punditry, as I spoke of earlier, that people get into. But I think that he's a capable player. And also, I know a lot of players have also, whether it's going to be Gravenberch or whether it's going to be Curtis Jones. I think a lot of our players have really stepped it up this year and re-solidified a midfield that was suspect last year. And this year is different. It's a different
Mhm.
fold. So
That's
a lot of
fair.
matchups are going to be a lot of fun matchups to see.
Victor, what you have to me?
Yo, the one thing that I'm going to be shameless about this game, Ederson starting. I'm gonna run my Ederson agenda in this game, man. I'm taking it to another level, clinical. I'm gonna be talking about Ederson and where and how he's positioned on the pitch. You know those stills when they show Ederson at the halfway line and he's just like in crazy space. I'm really looking at the keepers because I think we are gonna put pressure on Becker. I think we're gonna have him I think we're gonna have him have to pass that ball out, and I think what I've seen is force him to have to kick left, like force him to
Mm.
have to make those decisions. So I want to see that, and then again, I got confidence in Ederson. They always want to tell me I got a midfielder in net. I think we're going to see some great examples of of him and his skill set and why we favor him so much. So that's the matchup. I know it doesn't get talked about, but the
Yeah.
keeper matchup, I'm gonna be watching that because I think Ederson's taking it to another level. Like the Champions League run,
Mm.
it was not talked about, but the man was solid in net.
Exceptional. Yeah, he had an
You know,
exceptional season last season, in my opinion.
I
And
agree.
I agree that it doesn't get talked about enough. But 12 man, we did speak about that a bit. People don't tend to watch all the games. Like, from
They
what
do.
they see is what they speak on, which is fair.
Right.
But us as fans of the club, we do get to have that bit more extra content and a bit more footage that we would have seen to give a more informed opinion. And people will disagree, call it bias, and that's fair. We do have to take that with it. But I'd love to get into the Doku versus Simicast debate on the other side, but
It's
I don't
12,
think,
12
potentially, of course, because it could be Foden, but
but 12
um,
man, you think you're in defense is it's Semicast.
It's not a guarantee that's going to be simulcast, but I definitely think it should be simulcast. I would like to see simulcast start, because I don't want to see that's obviously we're going to have to rock with him until Robbo gets healthy,
mhm,
and Gomez can play the left back position, but and he's more defensively astute at left back than Simicast is. But I think that you got to get confidence and
Okay.
giving runs and giving players chances to show either perform or
Yeah.
fall on their face is important. And
Okay.
I'm gonna back Simicast in going out there and giving his best.
yeah, but like I was saying, I would love to get into that debate, but unfortunately, time won't permit this time around. Hopefully, we can have another discussion like this as a
Yeah, we should have
review.
one afterwards. I hope
Yeah,
that.
I would love to get a review back and get the thoughts of the actual game back on here. I do think that would make
Absolutely,
for another cracking
absolutely. I,
stream.
I want to see the same chest as well.
Hey, I
Listen,
know this ain't going nowhere. I don't know if Veta will be able to be back. I'm sure he'll have just as much chest as usual.
Oh, I know he will. Oh, I
I'll
know
be
he
back.
will.
I'll be back. I'll be back.
But yeah, 12 man, do you have anything coming up soon? Any streams? Are you doing a preview on your channel? Let people know
Yes,
what's
yes.
going
I'm going to
on.
do a preview. A preview. Mine's more so on the lines of like just going over the lineups that I predict are going to happen. I usually go into sometimes the scorers that I think are going to score as
Oh,
well.
preview then.
Yeah,
Games.
You're
I'm
predicting
talking
a
saying
win
about
at
chess,
Etihad.
right? The
Cool.
there you
man
go.
said, "I
There you
want to
go.
say three
There you
one."
go.
He said, "I want to
Hey,
say
I
3."
gave him the chance, Vader. I asked him in favor
There
of
you
who.
go. There you go.
So Vader, let me know what you have coming up. Is CIA that next show? And drop your
See,
score prediction as well.
yeah, no, respect clinical. CIA is going to be the next show. I'm looking to drop that 9 p.m. UK time, obviously 4 p.m. our time on the East Coast, and then mm, score prediction. I can't predict Pep's lineup. I want to see it on the day of. But if
Yeah.
if he plays the lineup that I kind of did previewed on my
Mm,
channel, like 12th man said, I see a 3-1 for City. I do see a 3-1. I think we can't keep. I think it's either going to be Nunez or Salah. We can't keep one of them off the score sheet. But I think we get our goals, and we score that third one late. It's not going to be like we're running
yeah,
riot on them. But
I hear
yeah,
you.
three
Well,
one.
my personal prediction, and I've been thinking about this all week. I really do think it's gonna be a 3-2, and if not, I'm thinking a 2-2 draw, just like the previous games. I think it's going to be really difficult to score three against them. I don't think they'll give us that many opportunities, and I do want to respect the form that they're coming into this game with. But that being said, we are playing at home, and I do think
Yes.
that Pep will definitely want to push for this result, especially after getting a draw against Chelsea.
Mhm.
So I'm going to go with that bit of hope. I'm more the heart over head right here, and I'm gonna go 3-2. But appreciate everyone that tuned in. I do want to send big ups to 12 Man's Way. His link is in the title. Do click that. Show him some love. Subscribe to his channel. Tell him that Clinical sent you. He's been an amazing guest, and I'd love to get him
Yes.
back on the
Appreciate
channel
it.
in the future again. And Veta Games, as usual, my brother, back on the channel once again. Not his debut, but also
Mm,
you'll see me over on his channel on some
facts.
streams. Show him some love and support. Um, and that's pretty much it. We'll see you guys on the next one. Bless up and
Thank
take
you.
care.
Take care,
Peace.
guys.